Good morning and welcome to Live at the Legislature, where every week we talk about the issues, bills, and happenings going on at the Legislature in your House of Representatives. With us today we have Representative Justin Woodson, representing Central Maui, and he is the chairman of the House Education Committee. But today we were talking about a proposed constitutional amendment to add a surcharge on investment property to support public education. Good morning, Representative Woodson.
Good to be with you again.
Thank you. Let me ask you first of all, what is this bill and why is it needed? Why do we need a constitutional amendment?
Well, it's interesting. It is, as you said, it's a proposed constitutional amendment to better support our children. We know right now that we spend about $1.9 billion of our state budget, which is about 20%, on funding our public schools. But we also know that it's simply not enough. We need to find additional revenue sources to better support our teachers and our students. And this is a way in which we are able to do so. So it's a proposed constitutional amendment to provide additional funding for our public schools.
I see. But why a constitutional amendment as proposed, as opposed to just raising the budget or passing a law?
Sure. So this particular provision is incorporated or embedded into our state constitution, which is a higher level of law. The legislature has the authority, the state legislature has the authority only to make amendments to the Hawaii revised statutes. It requires a constitutional amendment to make changes to a, for this level of bill.
Of funding, yeah.
Yes.
No. Now, how is this going to affect, if we had a constitutional amendment that affects property taxes, how is this going to affect someone who's a working class guy who lives in his home and does not have investment property?
So the intention of this particular proposal is for it to only apply to investment properties that are starting between $1 million and $1.5 million. Oh. That is what is recorded out of the Committee on Education. We do not want to inadvertently hurt working class people. That is not what we are attempting to do. So one definition as to how you define what a single-family home is a home that qualifies for a homeowner's exemption, which means that if you live in your house, if you live in your home, then that does not apply to this particular surcharge. What we are looking at is properties that are $1 million or up to assess this particular charge.
I see. So a typical homeowner is not going to be affected by this, at least directly, as far as his own home getting an increase in property tax.
That is correct. That is our intention.
Okay. Now, normally the counties assess property taxes, but this would be, what, a state property tax? How would this work?
Again, because this particular provision of the statute is embedded in our state constitution, it requires us to amend the constitution. That can only be done by a majority plus plurality vote, which means that 50 plus members of the communities, all the communities, which is important because all of us will have the opportunity to weigh in on this particular discussion. 50 plus 1 of the majority of the communities have to vote in the affirmative for this to be law.
So this is then letting the people decide whether this even goes into effect or not.
That is correct. That is the beauty of it.
Okay. So this is House Bill 29, or Senate Bill 2922. And why is this a good choice for people of Hawaii? You know, it does make more taxes for certain groups, but why do you think this is good for the majority of people in Hawaii?
Well, it's democracy in its purest form because ultimately the people will have to make the decision. We can have a robust discussion as to whether or not we want to better provide funding for our kids. We hear year after year that we need to provide additional funding for our public schools. Our schools are approximately 60 years plus old in terms of the infrastructure. We know that we need more money for the classroom instruction, and we know that teachers are saying that we need better support. So this is a discussion that we're going to have statewide. Everyone gets to participate to see as to whether or not we want to better support our kids or not.
Mm-hmm. Well, there has been a lot of discussion in the news recently about teachers striking and poor conditions in schools on the mainland. Are we anywhere near that type of situation?
So I wouldn't say that we're of the magnitude of like what's happening in like the state of Oklahoma as an example,
Right.
But I will say that every single state, and I spend a lot of time talking to legislatures from around the country, are dealing with this issue. How do we better support our teachers? How do we better support our students? And this is one way in the state of Hawaii in which we have decided that we can actually go forward and provide additional support and relief for our kids.
If this is passed, when would it actually go into effect? Say, in November it gets voted on and approved. When would it actually go into effect?
So if it's ratified by a majority of the people, then the legislature would come back next session and go ahead and define what an investment property means. So again, we are looking at properties, investment properties that are not owner occupied, that are between a starting point of $1 million and $1.5 million. Mm-hmm. We think that will provide us enough revenue base to do what we need. If we're going to get to a world-class education system, maybe we can get there without providing additional funding, but I think it will be very difficult to do so.
Oh. Well, where is this bill out right now in the legislative process? Where is it moving through the session?
So right now, the Senate already passed a version of the bill. We amended that proposal of the bill, and all that's required right now, because it has a clean date, is that if we pass it out of our House chamber, is that the Senate would just simply have to agree. If the Senate agrees to our proposal, then it will be placed on the ballot.
And then again, just so people understand, then it gets placed on the ballot. If it's passed, then a new law is written to support this constitutional amendment.
That is correct.
And do we know at this point what that final bill would actually, how the money would be dispersed for schools, or is that too early to say?
It's too early to say. Again, that's an open discussion. What the question is do we want to better support our kids? Do we want to better support our teachers? We've been talking about it for a long time, but now we have opportunity to do so. So we are formally asking permission from the communities as to whether or not they want to support this particular proposal.
Well, this seems like an important step to take for supporting our schools. What do you think are the biggest needs right now? I know you mentioned the teachers, but what do we need most right now in our schools?
We need funding, more funding for our ACs. We need more funding to support the infrastructure of our schools. We need more funding for classroom instruction. Mm-hmm. This would allow us to do so.
We still need air conditioning, even though we've put them in 1,000 classrooms.
We're making a lot of progress, but we still have a ways to go.
Okay, real good. Well, okay, so we will see how this goes this week, and then if it passes, it will be on the ballot in November, and everyone out there will get a chance to make your decision on whether you support this or not. And thank you for joining us this week. We'll see you again next week on Live at the Legislature.
Live at the Legislature is a live half-hour weekly news program that focuses on the issues, legislation, and topics of importance emerging from this year's legislative session. Each week, state senators and representatives provide a variety of perspectives on the issues from both sides of the aisle. Tune in to Live at the Legislature weekly to get exclusive updates on what's happening in Hawaii's legislature.
Do you know your legislators? Visit capitol.hawaii.gov and enter your street name to find detailed information about your representatives and senators. From your district number to the committees and current bills your legislators have introduced, this is an easy way to stay up to date with what is happening in your community. If you're looking for detailed information concerning Hawaii State Senate and House hearings, please visit olelo.org/gov-archives. Videos are arranged by date, with the most recent at the top of the list.
Are you looking for an easy way to get involved in the legislative process? Stop by the Public Access Room located in Room 401 at the Hawaii State Capitol. The Public Access Room provides citizens of Hawaii's facilities, services, and equipment to enhance their ability to participate in the legislative process. The public is welcome to track and affect legislation pending before the Hawaii State Legislature.
Aloha and welcome to Live at the Legislature. I'm Jill Kuramoto. Every week we sit down with Hawaii senators to talk about the events and the issues that are happening within the Senate during this legislative session. And this morning we are joined by Senator Brickwood Galutaria. Senator Galutaria represents District 12, which encompasses Waikiki to Ala Moana to Kaka'ako and Mo'iliili. And Senator Galutaria is the Majority Caucus leader. Thank you for joining us this morning.
For having me, Mahalo.
Now, I know we're about a little more than halfway through this legislative session, and this is where the bills head into conference. So the House and the Senate work together to come up with a bill that everybody agrees upon.
I like that. The House and Senate work together.
Work together.
I like that thought.
But this is when things can get pretty dicey, pretty dramatic, kind of emotional.
Yeah.
But tell us about what happens during conference that makes this a critically important part of the bill-making process.
Oh, you know, once we go through the process of, first quarter, as an example, a metaphor. First quarter, both houses have their bills introduced and work it. Then the second quarter, things begin to fall off the table and things begin to harden. And then we get to the halfway point, things switch over, we go through the same process again. So people, when you introduce a bill, unless it's by a request of a constituent, it means a lot to you. I mean, every bill that's introduced means a lot to everybody, right? But when you're coming into this part of the session and things begin to harden, and then, we need to look across the table to our colleagues in the House and say, okay, we really need this, and they really need that, so how do we make this happen? And it's all about quality of life, maintaining quality of life, ensuring that the Hawaii that we have today continues, and we try and make it better. So we're going to be coming into the conference time now, where we actually, literally, physically sit across from the table from each other, and we hash it out. And a lot of people live for these moments, right? Personally, I mean, every moment is a great moment here at the legislature, but yeah, we're coming into the fourth quarter now, and we'll see where everything goes. We've got a lot of great bills, a lot of interesting bills. We cleared out from both chambers the our choice bill, right, which gives people another option on end of life, and we feel that's one of our big accomplishments this particular session. But we've still yet got a lot to go. We've got all the human service bills, we've got the education bills. And so we'll see where it goes. Right.
Well, let's just talk about just a few of them. There's the Senate Bill 3070, the teacher stipend program, which establishes a incentive funding to increase the teacher shortage, to address the teacher shortage.
Yeah, and keep the current crop of teachers here in Hawaii too. So this is something that both the Senate and the House have agreed on. And so we want to get this up to the governor's desk as soon as possible so that he can sign it. I think that if anything, well, the biggest part of our budget process over the years has been education. It's been now surpassed by human services, unfortunately, but it still is, one of the biggest things that we can offer to our community is good education. And also, I mean, if you're going to say lawyers, doctors, Indian chief, I think maybe teachers should be in that mix too, right? So this is
absolutely. Okay, and then there's the Senate Bill 1290, transient accommodations tax. It allocates funding to HTA to address homelessness in tourism and resort areas.
Yeah, we're reappropriating much of the funding that came to HTA because we want HTA to concentrate on the marketing aspect of it. Yet we still feel that we need to polish the jewel, if you wish, and so that would include taking care of our homeless population. And see, because Waikiki is my district, as an example, right? And several years ago, when we first began here in the Senate, we noticed that Waikiki, there was a big proliferation of homelessness in Waikiki. And some unintended consequences come from the fact that you close off the parks at night, right? Say Kapiolani Park as an example. Right. So what happened was, like, an air in the balloon, boom, you squeeze it, go someplace else. For the Waikiki community, the homeless would go to the beach, where they'd be moved by the state police, because that's a state jurisdiction, into the sidewalks. And that's a city jurisdiction. So later on in the night, they'd be moved out of the sidewalks. The pavilions in Waikiki as an example, right?
Right.
And so we needed to work on that, and that's a tourist destination, so obviously we're going to reappropriate some of that towards homelessness, some of the taxes, TAT.
Right. Well, okay, we'll keep an eye on both of those measures. But let's talk about something else. I know Thursday is Kupuna Power Day.
Yep.
We are now in our 6th year for this event. It's free,
Incredible.
it's open to the public. But this is an extra special year.
Yeah, it is an extra special year. That's because when we first started this particular program, some of us weren't kupuna, but some of us are now. We are moving into the 6th year of Kupuna Power Day, which means we want to empower kupuna one session at a time, because it's strategically meant to be around this time when we go into conference. So the legislators, all of the colleagues can say, okay, kupuna in the house, right? And so it's a day to educate, a day to entertain. We're going to get Danny Kalekini, Marlene Sai. We just recruited Melvin Lead. It's like a senior resource fair with bling, right? So we got
Star power, absolutely.
education, a little exercise. And then this year is extra special because we've decided to dedicate the entire event to Senator Daniel Kahikina Akaka. And in his passing, we lose a very, very special aloha statesman. But his memory and his aloha is with us now. And each year, for the past several years, we've given away the Kahikina Award. And he's joined us every year to give it to the recipient. Recipients that included Carol Kai, Senator Susie Chan Oakland,
Right.
AARP. This year we have the senior ombudsman, John McDermott, and Lanaki Meal on Wheels is going to be receiving it. And he'll be here with us in spirit. And because of our dedication of the event to him, it's become an official year of the Hawaiian event. And so we're really, really proud. Well, we're certainly going to miss Uncle Danny.
Right.
You know.
He was a fixture here during Kupuna Power Day.
Oh yeah, absolutely. People would look forward to, once he comes walking in the house, star power, right? Talk about Kupuna star power. That was Senator Akaka.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so again, it's free, it's open to the public, and it starts at 9 o'clock here
Yeah.
at the Capitol.
The Senior Resource Fair, the tables will probably open about 8:30 rather. Then we'll start playing some music. I get to play music with my pals. And then we'll start the program at 9 o'clock. Representative Jackie Young is also going to join us. She's Dr. Jackie Young. She's going to talk about the biggest ism of them all, ageism. So that's going to be part of our conversation that day.
And this really is open to, it's focused on seniors, but it is open to everyone of all ages. Is that right?
Generations of aloha. I think it's important. Kupuna Power is also being able to empower your mo'opuna and your sons and daughters as to what they may be getting, as they move through life into the golden years.
We all have somebody that we
Silver
love.
tsunami. Golden years, silver tsunami. But there's a whole bunch of things that you can learn. And by the way, the first 200 people who are going to be there get a free Kupuna Power bag.
Oh, sold. Okay.
Okay.
All right. So again, that's Thursday here at the State Capitol. Thank you, Senator Galataria, for
Thank you so
joining
much.
us.
Aloha.
And thank you for watching Live at the Legislature. We'll see you next week.
Live at the Legislature is a live half-hour weekly news program that focuses on the issues, legislation, and topics of importance emerging from this year's legislative session. Each week, state senators and representatives provide a variety of perspectives on the issues from both sides of the aisle. Tune in to Live at the Legislature Weekly to get exclusive updates on what's happening in Hawaii's legislature.
Are you looking for an easy way to get involved in the legislative process? Stop by the Public Access Room located in Room 401 at the Hawaii State Capitol. The Public Access Room provides citizens of Hawaii's facilities, services, and equipment to enhance their ability to participate in the legislative process. The public is welcome to track and affect legislation pending before the Hawaii State Legislature.
Do you know your legislators? Visit capital.hawaii.gov and enter your street name to find detailed information about your representatives and senators. From your district number to the committees and current bills your legislators have introduced, this is an easy way to stay up to date with what is happening in your community. If you're looking for detailed information concerning Hawaii State Senate and House hearings, please visit olelo.org/gov-archives. Videos are arranged by date, with the most recent at the top of the list.
Good morning and welcome back to Live at the Legislature, where every week we sit with members of the House of Representatives to speak about issues going on and looking forward throughout the session. So today our guest is Representative Gene Ward. He serves as the minority floor leader and represents District 17, which is from Hawaii Kai to Kalama Valley. Welcome.
Good morning, Kaya.
So we've heard, for those who haven't seen the Senate session right before us, where are we in the session?
Where are we? Good question to start with. First, we were in a season of loss. We left with mourning on Friday when we had a moment of silence for Senator Akaka. I say in terms of where we are in placing on a map of history, we're in the post-PIE era. I said this when Danny Inouye left, PIE, post-Inouye era, and now it's the PAE, post-Akaka era. Two great legends who helped the people of Hawaii immensely with the funding. And Senator Akaka, Danny, a man who hugged everybody. He loved people. He gave us politicians a good name. You hear Danny Akaka, you say, hey, that's a man for the people. So I'd love to remember, just to remember him at this point is significant. But when we come to the state legislature and where we are, Kayo, this is an important thing, and people must know, we are in the Ides of March. What does that mean? It means the storms of gut and replace have just hit the Capitol. You know what gut and replace is? You don't have a hearing, but we pass a bill by taking the guts out of it and putting in another bill. That's what's going on right now at your Capitol, so you have to be really wise. But more importantly, the season that we're coming in the Ides of March is when this huge storm comes over the Capitol, like the Bermuda Triangle, and suddenly planes disappear, ships go down. We don't know whether it's just the way bills they're gonna come up and say, what happened to that bill? Well, the Bermuda Triangle of the Capitol has just descended. So in the next week, when we start the conference committees that Rickwood just talked about, some bills are gonna, I thought we were flying through this bill, and suddenly the bugger's gone. So it's an interesting time, but it's a time when the public really has to pay attention to what's going on. And a lot of the stuff that's not transparent, it gets even less transparent when we get into conference committees. So those are my opening remarks.
Speaking of transparency, we're going to be talking about a few bills, some that have either crossed over again or will be on the floor tomorrow. And so the first one I wanted to talk about was SB 2609, and what it did is it would hide the amounts reported on financial disclosure statements for volunteer members of 14 different state boards, commissions, and agencies. And this was heard in the House on Friday. It received 12 no's and also unanimous opposition from the minority caucus, and also received 7 no's in the Senate when it was on third reading. So Representative Ward, just kind of tell us a little bit why you had opposed this bill and a little bit of background behind it as well.
That is a retro step backwards for legislative transparency and legislative openness. Basically, it says if you're going to be on a board and a commission, this financial disclosure ethics requirement is redacted, which means we don't have to know any of your income. Part of being transparent is to be open, not secretive. They say, well, these are for people who make a lot of money, who are the highest qualified, and they don't want to show what their income is. Well, if they're into secrecy, or if they're trying to be rich or hide their riches, well, I don't think we need them. Because heretofore, as with us and everybody else who works for the state government and the city government, we have to show what our income sources are and what the incomes are. So I feel very strongly that people knew what was going on, and with the Ethics Commission being exempted from that, I mean, that's like the foxes saying to the chicken coop, that's probably not a good analogy. The point is, it's embarrassing that we would have a bill that would basically put the drapes over what's going on in the legislature and have it to where people could get on without any disclosure whatsoever. It's really a retrograde. It's probably one of the worst pieces of legislation that we're going to have. And I hope the Senate, as you said, there were seven no votes? 7 no votes in the Senate. That's a broadcasting to where, and this is where I would love the Bermuda Triangle, just to suck that bill down, drown it, and it never come back again. It's an embarrassment, quite frankly. Disclosure, ethics, there was a big editorial just in last week's paper. Ethics lacking in the state legislature. This proves the case that the Star Advertiser has shown that, with bills like this, we don't need to show how embarrassingly lacking transparency that we are. So whatever the motivation for it, and I know it comes out of the Senate, it doesn't come out of the House. It doesn't mean it's squeaky clean in the House, but it means the advocates of the Senate are pushing this for some reason. For what reason, I don't know, but I think it sounds more nefarious than it does open.
And we'll transition to something that's very important to the people in your district. It's SB 2571, which would, beginning July 1st, 2019, ban the sale of sunscreens containing oxybenzone.
I have the honor, Kayo, of representing the people in Hawaii Kai that has Hanauma Bay right in the smack middle of it. Hanauma Bay is a gem, not only for Hawaii Kai, but for all the people of Hawaii. It's one of the nature preserves where we have coral that's alive. We have visitors who come. President Obama, when he was here, would when it was closed on Tuesday, he would take over the whole bay. He made not only the bay famous, but he also brought attention to the fact that this is an issue we're very concerned about. So a bill was introduced, I think it was Representative Sparrow, and he and I took water samples to see that oxybenzone, which is part of a sunscreen mixture to keep our faces clean and free from cancer, that stuff in the water, in Hanauma Bay specifically, was not only killing the coral, which had already had bleaching, but it was taking the fish and their hormonal endocrine systems were being screwed up. And then they, from further research, said it happens also in the human system. So what we've got is a bill that essentially is anti-reef fish, and something that we can replace with other chemicals. So the oxybenzone, the sunscreen bill, is not going to hurt anybody who wears sunscreen because there's so much already out there on the market, and there's no loss to the cosmetic industry, the billion-dollar industry that says, oh, we can't do this, we can't do it now. And as you said, it doesn't take place till 2019. So that bill, I think, has legs. I think that bill is and generally, I don't like banning things, but this one is part of that whole process where the chemistry of the American body is getting increasingly confused with the way that we're questioning vaccinations now. We're questioning, why is autism on the rise? Well, if oxybenzone's got anything to do with it, particularly in terms of the sunscreen, hey, let's take it off and let's use something user-friendly.
Representative Ward, thank you for your time, and hopefully we will survive the Ides of March. The folks at home, thank you for joining us. We'll see you next week.